They were known as the builders of one of the greatest empires in human history. Roads, laws, and language, Rome gave the world civilization. But behind the marble statues and grand speeches lies a brutal truth history rarely tells. What happens when the thirst for power outweighs the value of human life? Today, we uncover the darkest and most shocking acts committed by the Roman Empire. Not myths, not legends, but real events recorded in ancient sources. From scorched cities to silenced populations, these aren't tales of glory. These are the chapters Rome hoped you'd forget. This is not just history. This is the truth behind the empire. The destruction of Carthage, 146 BCE. In 146 BCE, one of the wealthiest cities in the ancient world was wiped off the map. Its name? Carthage. Rome had already fought 2 brutal wars with the North African superpower. But it was during the Third Punic War that the Roman Senate decided, Carthage must not only be defeated, it must be erased. Led by General Scipio Aemilianus, Roman forces laid siege to the city. For nearly 3 years, Carthage held out. But once the walls were breached, what followed wasn't just a military victory, it was total obliteration. According to ancient historian Appian of Alexandria, Carthage was burned to the ground. Its surviving population, men, women, and children, were reportedly sold into lifelong servitude. Not a single building was left standing. Fields were destroyed, water sources tainted, and what was once a rival capital became a lifeless ruin. Why? Because Rome wanted to send a message to the world: defy the empire, and you won't be remembered. This wasn't just about war. It was about wiping out a civilization, its culture, its voice, its future. Even centuries later, Roman historians themselves questioned whether this act had gone too far. Was it justice? Or was it revenge turned into annihilation? But Carthage was just the beginning. In the next chapter, we uncover the hidden horrors of Rome's conquest of Gaul, where even Roman writers admitted the death toll was staggering. The Gallic Wars and the massacres of Julius Caesar, 58–50 BCE. He's remembered as one of history's greatest generals, Julius Caesar, the man who conquered Gaul and later became dictator of Rome. But behind the victories was a campaign that even ancient Roman historians described as brutal, excessive, and calculated. The Gallic Wars lasted from 58 to 50 BCE, as Caesar led Roman legions into modern-day France, Belgium, and parts of Germany. His goal wasn't just conquest. It was political power, fame, and control of vast resources. But at what cost? According to Caesar's own writings in Commentary de Bello Gallico, over 1 million Gauls were killed, and another 1 million enslaved. Villages were destroyed wholesale. Tribes who resisted were shown no mercy. Not just warriors, but entire populations were uprooted. One of the most chilling examples was the massacre of the Eburones, a tribe in what is now Belgium. After they revolted against Roman rule, Caesar ordered their extermination. Ancient sources say the tribe was wiped from the map. Even some Roman senators at the time raised concerns. Yet Caesar framed his actions as necessary for order and Roman security. The truth? It was a demonstration of total control through fear. And it worked. Gaul was subdued, and Caesar returned to Rome a hero, but with rivers of innocent blood behind him. Was this military genius, or calculated cruelty in the name of empire? In the next chapter, we turn to the eastern frontier, where Rome's wars against Judea sparked a rebellion, and a city sacred to millions was left in ruins. The siege and destruction of Jerusalem, 70 CE, Jerusalem, one of the most sacred cities in human history. But in the year 70 CE, it became the epicenter of one of Rome's most devastating military campaigns. The conflict began with the First Jewish-Roman War, when tensions between Roman authorities and the local population erupted into full-scale rebellion. In response, Emperor Vespasian sent his son, Titus, with a clear mission: crush the resistance and re-establish Roman control. What followed was one of the most tragic sieges in ancient history. According to the Jewish historian Flavius Josephus, over 1 million people, many of them refugees from surrounding regions, were trapped inside the city walls during the siege. As Roman forces encircled Jerusalem, supplies were cut off, and what was once a vibrant metropolis descended into desperation and collapse. After months of relentless assault, the walls were breached. The Second Temple, a sacred symbol of Jewish identity, was destroyed. Fires raged through the city, and ancient streets that had echoed with prayer were now filled with silence. Josephus, himself a witness, wrote that countless civilians lost their lives, and tens of thousands were taken captive, some to be sold, others forced into labor across the empire. To Rome, it was a military triumph. But to the people of Jerusalem, it was a cultural catastrophe, the loss of a homeland, a sacred space, and a way of life. What made it even more shocking? This wasn't just about defeating an army, it was about sending a message to an entire people. But the story doesn't end in Jerusalem. Next, we travel north, to the mysterious island of Britannia, where one Roman governor's actions left a legacy of terror and sparked a legendary rebellion. The atrocities in Britannia and the Boudican Revolt, 60–61 CE. When Rome invaded Britannia, it claimed to bring civilization, roads, towns, and order. But to many native tribes, it brought something else entirely: betrayal, humiliation, and violence. In 60 CE, after the death of the Iceni king Persuagus, Roman authorities moved quickly to annex his territory, ignoring his will and violating an agreement of peaceful alliance. According to Roman historian Tacitus, the Roman governor Gaius Suetonius Paulinus seized lands, looted noble estates, and allowed the mistreatment of Iceni royalty. Among those targeted was Queen Boudica, who would become a symbol of resistance. The result? Rebellion. Furious at the abuses and broken promises, Boudica united several tribes and launched one of the most significant uprisings in Roman Britain. Her forces swept through Roman settlements with overwhelming force, including Camulodunum, modern Colchester, Londinium, London, and Verulamium, St. Albans. Entire Roman communities were overrun. Rome responded with overwhelming retaliation. Governor Suetonius regrouped and eventually defeated Boudica's army in a brutal battle. Tacitus records that up to 80,000 Britons may have died in the suppression, compared to only a few thousand Roman losses. After the revolt, Roman policies in Britannia hardened. Entire communities were displaced. Tribal autonomy was crushed. The message was clear: any resistance to Roman rule would be met with absolute force. Rome claimed victory. But at what cost? For many Britons, it wasn't the spread of culture they remembered, it was the loss of identity, sovereignty, and freedom. And while armies fought on the frontiers, inside Rome itself, a quieter but equally disturbing crime was taking place, one that turned millions into property. In the next chapter, we expose the empire's hidden engine, the Roman slave system. Slavery in Rome. The human cost of empire. Beneath the grandeur of the Roman Empire, beneath the marble columns, golden armor, and political speeches, there existed a system that fueled the entire machine: slavery. Unlike modern definitions tied to race or region, Roman slavery was widespread and deeply systemic. Nearly one-third of the population at Rome's height was enslaved, millions of people from across conquered lands: Gaul, North Africa, Greece, the Middle East, and beyond. They were not just laborers. They were teachers, doctors, engineers, farmers, soldiers, and even gladiators, forced to fight for entertainment in arenas like the Colosseum. Many were prisoners of war. Others were born into servitude. According to ancient sources like Pliny the Elder and Seneca, the lives of slaves could vary, but for most, it meant no rights, no freedom, and no future. Some Roman writers acknowledged the cruelty. The philosopher Seneca wrote about the inhumanity of abusing slaves, yet even he owned dozens. In Rome, the economy depended on this system. The empire's wealth, comfort, and power came, ironically, from those who had no power at all. Occasionally, the system cracked. One of the most famous revolts was led by Spartacus, a former gladiator who challenged Rome itself. But his rebellion, like many others, ended in brutal suppression. Thousands of captured rebels were executed as a warning. To the Roman elite, slavery was normal. To the enslaved, it was life without dignity. And that may be the darkest truth of all, that an empire so advanced in thought, law, and engineering could still depend on the suffering of millions to survive. The Roman Empire gave the world architecture, philosophy, and roads still used today. But hidden behind that legacy are stories of cruelty, silence, and forgotten lives. These were not just footnotes in history. They were people, real people, whose suffering helped build a legacy that is still celebrated. History is not just about glory. It's about truth. And sometimes, truth is uncomfortable. If you believe history should be told honestly, not just glorified, subscribe to our channel. Share this video and help bring light to the hidden chapters of our past.